Hello, friends. My name is Lucas. If you're new to this channel, I produce a podcast every week, and this week it will be just me, myself, and I. I have some thoughts that I wanted to discuss with you guys that I wanted to throw on the table. I'm going to keep it shorter today so that people have a chance to listen and to sit with the ideas and perhaps add to my thoughts and, help my thinking become more true. So I'll start with talking about podcasting. I'm on episode number 60 with this one, I believe. And so that's over a year of experience with doing a podcast once a week. And I think that's given me insights into this game that I wasn't aware of or familiar with before. There's only so much you can learn when you're not actually in it yourself. And then there's other things you can learn by not being in it. But having walked both paths of the listener and the speaker and continuing to do so, I've noticed that the podcasting industry is an industry, and I don't know if it used to be like that. I think once people started to figure out that you can have sponsorships and you could make a living out of this, I think the podcasting game started to shift. To add on top of that, now the podcasting platforms have turned, at least some of them have turned into platforms for politicians and famous people to plead their case, similar to what news channels used to be or TV programs. So people are able to make a name for themselves by actually appearing on podcasts. And there is no private, intimate conversation that has all of those factors with it, if you know what I mean. I want the conversations that I have on this channel to be as true and good and beautiful as possible. And I don't see that happening when my livelihood depends on this. And all of this is me saying I don't want to make a living with this, and I'm not sure if it's a good thing for other people to aim at. Now, there are exceptions, and I really thought about this for myself. It's like, in what scenario, in what world would I want to make a living off of this? And that scenario would be when my God-given talents are best utilized by doing this exact endeavor full-time. That would mean I'd spent hours of my energy every day into the podcast. Now, are there people who should be doing that? Perhaps. Perhaps there are people that are uniquely suited to this platform and should absolutely pursue this full time. But I think for a lot of people, they're needed elsewhere. They're wanted elsewhere, and their qualities are more suited elsewhere. So that's one of the main reasons why I think it's good that I got a job and that I have a bunch of people in real life that I'm interacting with, and that not all my conversations are public. And I'm currently in a stage of life where I want everything I do to be more connected to real life. And this podcast is also an attempt to connect to real life, but it's always going to be limited because it's public and because oftentimes it's through Zoom. And Zoom never gives you the full picture of a person, sadly, but it can get you closer. And if reality itself is already some sort of a copy of a copy, then Zoom is another copy. So that's both something to be happy about and something to lament a little bit, because in a sense, everything can point to a higher reality, but also it isn't. For all I know, I could be talking to bots for the last year, but that's not the case. So to continue on this, I've thought about what podcasting looks like nowadays, and I've thought about the potential it holds, and I've thought about how I can contribute to that positive potential, that good potential to flourish. And I think the only way to do that is to continue practicing genuine conversations in which I can let people be heard, in which I can bring forth goodness and wisdom, in which people can be taught. about higher things, and yeah, to have engaging conversations. That's a high aim. So is that going to grow? Yes or no? It doesn't matter as much as the quality of the conversations. And that brings me to another point, which is this idea of quality. Of course, I had Sevilla on last week, who spent a lot of time trying to understand Robert Pirsig's notion of quality. But I'm just going to leave that aside and speak about quality, as a lot of you will understand it. And the famous phrase, quality over quantity, really applies in life in general. Death anxiety is something that comes to mind with me where I'm thinking about this phrase, because it's hard to not fear death, but one thing that will probably grant you peace with the finiteness of your existence is the quality of your life. If you have a high quality life, one that was worth living, then I think you can be at peace with it ending. And that somehow seems paradoxical, because if it was so good, why wouldn't you want it to continue? But reality is paradoxical like that. I think it's good to be like nature. And tying it back into the podcasting thing, podcasts stop to be natural when they're informed by financial incentives, when it's money we're after, or views. And people that have quit their jobs to pursue podcasts full time often do find out that it is a business. Are all businesses bad? I'm not that type of person to say that. But they do change the way that you look at things. And I like to view podcasts through an artistic lens. And I think the greatest art has been and will continue to be produced by genuine incentives, by trying to bring forth beauty. There is something so beautifully pure about being able to participate in a conversation just by listening. And podcasting gave me that from when I was a teenager. I was, instantly sold by the idea. And it's awesome that we are all able to sit in on some of the smartest people, some of the wisest people, some of the most beautifully radiating people, and some of the funniest people having conversations with each other. And we can just sit in and we can choose. We have all this optionality on the internet to choose whatever we want to listen to. And that's something special about it. It's one of the reasons why I also wanted to start this, because it's so scalable, it's so accessible to other people, and it's a way in which we can share beautiful things. But everything has a trade-off. And the trade-off of podcasting is that you're going to have people developing relationships with people that don't know them. I've had this happen to myself, of course. Listen to so many conversations that you start to think you know people. Maybe you start to dream about them, and they have no idea who you are. That is dangerous. Maybe those online conversations you're listening to are holding you back from connecting in the real world. Of course, the opposite can hold true as well. But I'm just pointing out a lot of the trade-offs we're making with with podcasting. But this applies to all new things that seem so interesting and shiny and full of potential. They always come with the negative potential as well. I think if we really start to embody a relational worldview, that might be the key to figure out and to really see more clearly what should our relationship be to podcasting, for example. But it could be any modern thing, as I just mentioned. I'm thinking about, what is this? In the US, you have a lot of these people. The group of people that live kind of like away from society, have their own community, and that like say no to a lot of technology. I do know the name, but you guys can tell me in the comments. I think they're usually religious groups as well. But I remember Jonathan Peugeot, who a lot of you guys will be familiar with from the Symbolic World, his YouTube channel, him basically being like, they kind of got it right. They realized, like, okay, there's a lot of potential here. Modern day tools, shiny, interesting. How can it serve the community? How can it serve goodness? How can it serve God? How can it serve our relationship to each other? And so that's my plea for today. Let's try to really embody the relational worldview and see tools as well through that relational lens. And I think that's when we can really start to make positive change. And we can find an optimal grip on podcasting, on the digital platform that we're all using. But yeah, I think that's it. And I think once we start doing that, we can get more on the right path, and then we can have faith that ripples out. Because if we harmonize our own lives and we reflect that in our actions, then hopefully other people will follow, and that will hopefully make the world a bit more connected. So yeah, I think I'll end it there. I don't want to make it too long. Probably mentioned that before, but I think it's good when I'm bringing some new thoughts to just bring it out, sit with it, and don't drag it out too much. A good book should only be 200 pages long, I think, but that's often not the case. So I'm going to stop it here. Thank you guys for listening. New guests coming next week, of course. Sorry if this was a bit short, and sorry that I'm alone, but I've been trying to make it as dialogical as possible. Always trying to remember that there's people behind the screen watching, and so would love to hear your reactions, and wishing you all a beautiful week. See you for the next one.